I'm gonna wait for a little bit for the other host to kind of stream in. Last minute, I know Emmanuel had some issues, like some family issues and everything that came up. So um, he, I'm not expecting for him to join us today. And then I also heard from Harut that she had an issue where she won't be able to show up today. So unfortunately, uh, so far those two won't be here. But I'm expecting possibly for Chris and Brandon to possibly still show up. So regardless of if they don't show up or not, excuse me, the show must go on. I see VC is in the chat. How you doing today? Hopefully you're having a good morning. Well, evening, depending on where you're at. Uh, let's see the topics that we're going to talk about today, because I guess I'll just talk about the topics since I haven't since the other guests are not in, and we've already started. Well, not completely started, but just a little warm up to everything. We are going to talk about all the things that have been going on in Kenosha. There we go. We have Chris.
What's going on, Marcus?
Hey, how we doing, Chris?
I'm all right. We here.
I was just basically kind of, I guess I could adjust and come in a little closer, so not a gazillion miles away. Okay, is that a little better?
Yeah, that's good.
All right. I guess I said that while I was waiting for some of the other co-hosts to pop in, I'll kind of give some of the stories and topics or whatever that I kind of wanted to talk about, and then whatever things that you've noticed in the media that have been going on, that we need to be talking about as far as the Black community. Then we'll try to get into more of those issues, and hopefully, the rest of the hosts they kind of know the basic drill. So, oh, sorry, Chris, you muted yourself.
Oh no, I was telling my son to bring me something.
Oh.
But go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I was saying basically, the rest of the hosts they kind of know the spiel. So, whatever issues you feel wanted to bring up, we'll definitely get into that. But I want to talk about definitely the stuff that's been going on with Kenosha, and then I kind of want to pick up some of what we were talking about last night. Regardless of if Trump wins, hold on, oh, saw somebody and then lost them. Regardless of if Trump wins or if Biden wins, uh, there are going to be a certain state of affairs that are going on within the country, and so I'm trying to look at where we're going to be at in the country, what things we're going to be facing, what things we're going to be dealing with, whoever the president is going to be for that first 100 days, which things are going to be the paramount focus that need to be focused on. And so that's kind of the issues that I was thinking about that I wanted us to go through and talk about. Um, I guess I saw somebody pop in and then they disappeared. So I guess I will start the show. This is what I've been thinking. Young Black Leaders Forum. I believe I think 10. I'm not sure. I started losing track of these things after a while. Um, in this episode, we want to talk about what's been going on with Kenosha, which all started off um, with the domestic dispute that was going on between family members and the young gentleman who went over there to, as the story what I've been told, went over there to try to diffuse the situation. The altercation switch between him trying to defuse the situation to him having an altercation with the police. Um, I've seen video where it was back and forth, some tussling that went on between him and the officers. So I do want to be cognizant of everything that's going on. I don't want to leave things out when we talk about everything that went on with this process. so that we're fair to all parties. But I want to look at it in a very, clear focus, and I want to talk about it in a couple of different ways because I do have some experience with law enforcement, being harassed by them, and also some training that I've had, which I've obtained through the military. Some of this training teaches de-escalation. It teaches the way to approach situations, especially when you have, especially when it's very hostile or chaotic. Those are some of the things I want to get into. I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but so it switched to an altercation between him and the police officers. The police officers, then that one police officer followed him around the vehicle and chose to, at that point, shoot him 7 times with small children in the vehicle. And many on the right feel that's justified because he had an altercation with the police. It's alleged that he had a weapon. I have not found anything to prove that or cite that. So, I mean, I kind of just leave that neither here nor there, the weapon part, because there's nothing to back up or substantiate that. We have Chris back in.
Yeah, sorry about that. I had a power surge.
Oh, it's all right. I was kind of trying to go through the timeline of what went on in Kenosha.
Okay.
And at this point, I'm at where the officer decided to shoot him. We already talked about they had the ground kind of tussle, that he came over there to try to settle down the family dispute that was going on, and how it kind of escalated to that. And I was telling them some of my training in the military, I did work security forces. So it gives you some training on how to approach those kind of situations. And I've been in those kind of situations. So I was talking about how the right wing, they kind of skip all the way to the point of him yanking away from the officer into the gunshots and justifying it from that point. And, of course, I want to speak on the Kyle Rittenhouse thing, but I kind of want to stay in line to how this thing kind of started to build out. So what is your takeaway so far at, how I've kind of spoke about it in your interpretation, or things that I might have missed, or things which I might have gotten wrong in the way that I've perceived these things, or little nuggets which I need to add into the story, which I'm missing?
I largely agree with you about most of it. Regarding the guy who got shot, Jacob Blake, I'm not sure if he had any warrants. I thought maybe I saw somewhere maybe he had warrants, or not. I'm not talking about his record, but I think he may have had a warrant. Not too sure. But in all of that to the side, again, like in any other instance, the police can choose to handle the situation differently, and they chose to handle it the way they often do when it comes to us. And the right wing then, after the fact, runs to his record. Of course, he's got a couple of arrests, and then it all becomes justified. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of evidence showing that even in situations that are more life-threatening, the police for sure know how to de-escalate those.
Well, I mean, you look at the Jacob Ruth situation, how that was de-escalated. You have a young man who walks into a black church, opens fire on defenseless parishioners, and they not only take him alive, but they stop and get him a meal on the way to prison. Perfectly fine. The same thing with the Aurora, Colorado shooter. He was taken into custody perfectly fine.
The Parkland shooter.
Yeah. And my thing, speaking from my military and I guess kind of a law enforcement perspective, and then I've done a lot of work with private security and things like that also. And so there's just tons and tons and tons of training, which you can seek out either from within, the law enforcement bureau which you work, or from, private institutions and a lot of different colleges. teach even to the military some of the de-escalation tactics and things which we do. And what I was going to say is the biggest problem, I counted at least 5 officers on the scene.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, why are all officers' tasers not out? You could use a taser at that point. You have batons, which you can use at that point. There are officers who have rubber bullets who keep those in their inventory ready. Why couldn't that officer switch to that non-lethal weapon? Why couldn't you also, while he's walking away, warn him that he is going to get shot and aim for a non-lethal area? There are just gazillions of ways. He could have been just literally tackled because he's walking away from the police officers. Mm-hmm. Why did you wait until he got all the way around to him getting into the car? Mm-hmm. And even at that point, say he gets in the car and his goal is to drive away and to flee. Okay, that's resisting arrest. That's fleeing. Okay, that's just more charges. Mm-hmm. You have his address. You know who the man is. If you've already identified that, they say, per one of the stories I read, they said that he had, I think it was a sexual assault warrant that was out. If that's the case, you already know this man is in the system. You know this man's address. Just go and track him down. Normally, it takes like a week or so in a lot of these cases when people flee. That's the reason why in Florida, for instance, where you're at and where I lived for a while, they will not pursue over a mile because they'll just get down your address and then come pick you up a couple of days later. Normally, when you're running around chasing and escalating the situation, it only gives for the possibility for somebody to be harmed. Whether you mean to do it or not, whether you try to justify it or not, I look at it as we have to look at life preserved should be the goal. And I don't feel many of these people look at it in this perspective, that your ultimate goal should be to try to keep these people alive first. And then, you can seek out justice. And when it gets to lethal force, it's when your life is legitimately being threatened or someone else's life is legitimately being threatened. What do you say, Chris?
We're always here, right? We're always having the same discussion. Always, what if, why didn't they, how come? They don't value life, much less ours, in terms of the police, right? And they're not trained they're trained like a military force. They're not necessarily trained as a peacekeeping civilian police force. Look where they go get trained. A lot of them go take training from the Israeli Defense Forces. So you already know, you can see how they treat the Palestinians there, and you can already see the history and how they treat us here. So basically, it's just like an upgrading of the tactics to inflict more pain, to cause more terror. Because a lot of the times, I feel like a lot of these things happen not so much to hurt the victim, it's just to send a message to the larger community. Like, mess around, look what happens to you. And unfortunately, we sit around and we just watch, we record. That's the best we could do, but nothing happens to them, right? The police. Nothing ever does. Maybe every once in a while, somebody will get charged, arrested. Some may even get convicted, but those are few and far between. Until you start hurting their pocket and making their life unlivable after they take somebody's life, we're going to be back here in 2 weeks, 2 days, 2 months, whatever it is.
Well, let's dig into that a little bit more. You said hurt their pockets. What's the best way you say that we should be able to hurt their pockets?
You got to go after their pensions. You violate somebody, you cause major physical harm and or death, that has to come out the pension. And not just that individual officer either, right? It has to come out the police officer's pension, if there is like one large pension, which I'm sure there is. But it has to come out of there because they take life, they injure people, and then you and I, or the people in the respective states, they end up having to foot the bill for that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like that money could go towards an after school program. It could go towards a before school program. It could fund an athletics program, what have you. But no, that money has to go towards paying a fine or a fee to a family of the victims. So until you start hitting them in their pocket, they're just going to keep doing it.
Yeah, I'm afraid so. I mean, I think I was really trying to think about it. I was like, if I could come up with one bullet point, just one thing which I think could work, because I mean, there's such a web that's already built that you have to break through. And when you look at it, there's so many other municipalities, so many different city ordinance, so many different states and regulations where you might be able to fight it here, but you're going to lose over here. And
Yep.
so there's still a bunch of people who are going to be disenfranchised and still harmed in the process. And so I try to figure out, what is one bullet point that they all have across the board tied together that you could strike at a national level that can actually be effective? And I'm gonna tell you my idea, and then let me know what you think. I mean, honestly, if you think that it's something that could work, if you think it's something that people would possibly buy into, if it's something that we should probably dig more into or flesh out more, or it's fine the way it is. My thinking is we need to change our approach to focusing on the officer's approach. If we repurpose policing completely, like if we get rid of police officers literally looking for people to, I mean, like actually prohibit from officers just riding around and looking for what they think people are doing. Your job is, if you're called, to respond if needed, and if there's actual crime in progress, to respond to it. It's not to play Perry Mason or Sherlock Holmes and try to guess what you think people are doing and then create situations. And I feel that would eliminate a lot of the problems if you took away their ability to just randomly pull over any person or just decide to just knock on any door. If you put them back in a sense of, we are actually their bosses, even though they are the law, we pay their salary. So there is some kind of respect that needs to be treated to an American citizen.
I agree with repurposing them. Also, too, it's a financial thing, right? Because these departments, they have their quotas for tickets, arrests, etc. Maybe we should start looking at the financial components of this. I mean, this plays into taxes, right? All these from local level, state level, federal level. The people with a lot of money, they get breaks at almost every single level. I would assume some of those taxes would go towards the police departments. Maybe we should look at paying them more. Like, we don't need as many cops and we don't need as many cops, right? Because I think we already have way too many. So I'm saying, if we cut the extra ones we don't need, pay the remaining ones a little bit more money, maybe then you don't have the constant stopping, the speed traps, etc., etc. That's one component. After that, I would say then legalization of drugs. I know it sounds crazy, but to me, that seems to be the number one reason why they're in our neighborhood. You can't stop rape, but you don't know rape is going to happen, right? You don't know that someone's going to abduct a child before they do. But when you're talking about drugs, drug use, drug sales, etc., they're going to be in the community looking. Now, if me and you standing on the corner, we dress a certain way and our body language looks, they're already going to profile us, and that's where you get the stop and frisk, and that's where you get the initial interaction between us and the police. And when you're not doing anything wrong, you don't want to be questioned. So your attitude is already going to be bad. So that already, starting off, it's already messed up. So I would say it's a combination of repurposing them and also looking at the finances so that they don't have to do certain things for money, because money drives a lot of this. Yeah, there is hatred and racism, etc., but a lot of this is financially based. Because let's face it, our number one value as a group is money. It's not anything else. Unfortunately.
Well, and see, and that's something that an idea which I used to really like, which it's kind of gave me a little bit of pause and a little heartburn lately. I used to think, you know, we can do more independent inquiries, or maybe we can do a federal agency that could oversee some of these situations on the local levels. And then I started realizing the actual real power and influence of money, and is thinking, ooh, I don't know how. I mean, that might start out, you know, well-intentioned and well-purposed, but it could be so easily corrupted, I just feel. And, you know, maybe you can get one or two good cycles out of that before, you know, they start figuring out, okay, well, this person has a mom who has cancer. Maybe we can toss her a little bit of money and she'll play ball. Or maybe his son needs to get into Harvard, so maybe we can, you know, make a recommendation. You get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. No, I understand it, but we have to do something. Whether it's one thing, two things, a combination of many things, but something has to be done. The status quo cannot go on. Eventually, somebody or people will retaliate. There's gonna be some level of retaliation, and it's not gonna be good. And it's not just gonna be that Dallas situation either. It's gonna be a lot uglier. So if we don't do something about this now, because there's a lot of, like, you know, I have a teenage son, right? I talk to him all the time, his friend, peers, etc. They on a different type of time than we are, right? They not on that Chuck chill out. Oh, we're gonna just pray, go to church, and they're gonna be different. So it's on us to try to not put them in that situation when the time comes.
Well, and see, and that goes to, like, I have some older people, well-intentioned, you know. I love them, they love me, but they're always like, you need to calm down, and, you know, this is gonna be fine, and, you know, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm hearing in my ear on this other side, though. And exactly. I'm just kind of more of a middle ground to, like, I look at it like this. I'm trying to help us find a peaceful revolution to actually affect positive change, you know, to help the most people. I know nothing's ever going to be perfect, and we're not going to be able to help every single person. No. But the goal is that we can just start doing better, and that we can actually make progress and actually help some of the people who have just been, you know, left out of the economic system for so long and that are struggling. And I just feel that there's so many ways that we can, you know, put ladders down for people to climb up that we're not trying to do. And so many people are just so comfortable with their own status that they're not willing to, I guess, come out of that comfort zone and just look at things or only talk about them in more of a tokenism manner. I.e., you know, what you had with Nancy Pelosi and the House Democrats wearing the kente cloth. You know, that looks good. It may feel good to some people, but it's not going to actually change legislation. And that is where the problem actually is. Oh, I'm sorry. I guess I got a bunch of chats. I was frozen, so I could not see the chats. So VC says, settlements come out of the pensions of all officers involved in the incident, as well as legal repercussions. Oh, they do? I wonder if that's every locality or not.
It might be. I mean, that's something I would have to further check. I'm not 100% sure, but if it does, then maybe it needs to come out more, right? Maybe it needs to be more money taken out of there. I really don't know. It wouldn't make me feel good to lose my kid, and I have $20 million. I could care less. Like I'll be broke. I want my kid. So
VC sorry. Yeah, I had a couple more comments. Said then reallocate funding to social programs for the community. As Chris said, people need homes, food, clothes, education, and jobs, not military-grade weapons and gear turned on them. And since you brought up the military part again, it's one thing I do kind of want to slightly push back on in defense of the military members, not the mission of what the military has been turned to do of late. Um, in the military, there are certain there's what we have the UCMJ.
Yep.
I'm so sorry, I'm getting tongue tied so much today, but Uniform Code of Military Justice. And in that, we have certain guidelines that we have to follow, very strict guidelines. You have things called like ROE, rules of engagement when you're in a war zone, for instance. If you're being fired at, you have to make sure that that fire is directly coming at you, not that you're just hearing gunfire, because that can start an international incident. Every single time you get ready to discharge your firearm, you have to think about all the ramifications and what you could do and how you should do this. And so, as a 19, 20-year-old in the military, I was forced to have to be decisive on how I handle things when I'm carrying a firearm. And the fact that 30, 40, 50-year-old men who supposedly go through all this training are not required to stay at the same standard is where I have a big problem. And a lot of right wingers, some of them who are former military, know better than this. And then you have these pipsqueaks like Steven Crowder and Ben Shapiro and Laura Ingraham and all of these people, where they have no clue. They don't understand being in any of these situations, and they don't realize how simple they could be walking around at night. It's a little cold outside, they have a hoodie on or something, and get the wrong cop, and then they have a bad situation. I mean, none of us are immune when you're on the other side of the blue line. I mean, even Dave Chappelle talked about stories where the officer came up and was like, "Ooh, you're lucky you're Dave Chappelle." And it shouldn't take for you to have to be Dave Chappelle or have to be LeBron James to have a good night. I mean, but that's the reality for a lot of people, and a lot of right wingers will not look at what's going on there. And so I say that the military, those members are held to a much higher standard, and they hold to that standard, whereas police officers don't. They take it upon themselves to do whatever they want. Whereas military, you differentiate to your commander, and your commander makes a decision on what you guys are going to do. And there's always one voice who is the lead, who's speaking, who's guiding, versus you see police forces, you see 15 officers out there and you hear 15 voices yelling at one person.
All the time. The only thing I will push back against you when you said you want a peaceful revolution, I don't know if you can make an omelet without breaking some eggs, right?
Hey, I'm trying to be an optimist, brother. I'm trying to be an optimist. I'm not going to be naive and not say I don't see signs. And I can't say that, you know, I was in the military. I've been in some of these countries and have talked to people firsthand and heard different stories than what we hear in the media. And not from just some random person on the street. You know, when I was overseas in the military, I had a NATO secret clearance where I was able to be in the room with certain conversations. And so when you see what things are actually going on, when you know what troops on the ground in certain countries are actually being prioritized to do. I mean, for instance, I know for a fact that we guard executives and that we guard poppy fields in Afghanistan. That's a fact.
That's a fact. There's no denying that. There's many soldiers have confirmed that over the years, many.
And so, I mean, when people try to tell me, oh, well, this is going to be this, I'm like, but I still see these same things going on. And whether you change the figures of who are in office, I still keep seeing these same things. Okay, I've got a little bit off topic, but let me finish up a couple more of those chats, and then we'll move on to the Kyle Rittenhouse. See, legalization opens up discussion of rehabilitation and health resources. Yes, it does. New drone footage shows a third shooter. What? In times, I'm going to have to look into that. I have not heard about a third shooter.
Oh, me neither.
I didn't even know there was a second shooter. So that is news to me. I will look into it.
I know There was two guys. The one with the skateboard, I believe, he died, right? And then I think there was
Yeah, he
somebody
died,
else who
but
had
they
a
both
handgun.
were. The story that I understood was that he shot the first person, and the person with the skateboard came over and attacked him to try to get him
Mm-hmm.
off. Then he shot that person,
Correct.
and
Mm-hmm. That's
so
what I
I
heard too.
hadn't heard about a second or third shooter. So that is news to me.
But
Let me read these last couple of chats. Oh no, I'm agreeing with Christ that this what should happen. Ooh, BC. You know what? You need to hit me up in the DM. We're gonna have a chat. It's some stuff that I know what you're talking about. So yeah, it's some information I want to share with you directly. But I think you'll enjoy it. And said maybe peaceful is an option, maybe, but and capital on the but.
mm-hmm.
That will require the unconditional unity among a vast majority of the working class. I completely agree. That's the reason why I'm trying to focus so much on us being aware of the things that are going on. Granted, I have my different shows and different platforms, and I want people to keep in mind that these are separate, platforms and separate messages I'm trying to work on and movements trying to build. And here, I just want us to be able to talk about these issues and start being aware of what's actually going on. So when we have politicians who get in and say, oh, well, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, we need to actually hold them accountable. And that's the only way I feel we can get to a peaceful revolution. The only thing that politicians actually fear is losing power and getting kicked out of office. That's the only thing I think that they fear. And so if they see a trend of, okay, the people wanted this, we didn't do it, they put us out of office. You can't spend your time being in fear of what the other person is going to do just in case. It's just kind of like parents. If both of your kids are playing on opposite teams and you see one of your kid cheats and you're the official, are you going to let that? Are you going to let your son just go ahead and cheat your other son?
I don't know.
No,
I don't
you're
play
not.
that.
You're going to say, no, you lost. I know that it's going to hurt. I know that it might harm you in different ways or whatever. I mean, on the political level, but it comes down to we all teach our kids, I don't have kids, but we all teach kids, or we're all taught at a young age, fairness and about doing the right thing. And what message does that send when you reward people on the highest level for doing those kind of things, over and over?
That's just how it's set up, right? It's, when you're poor, working class, follow all the rules, dot every I, cross every T, don't jaywalk, right? On the higher level, the higher tier, the higher the tier financially, the rules just become very arbitrary. Oh, I don't feel like following this rule today, so I'm good. We have to find a way to stop allowing that.
Mm-hmm.
We allow that. That's the only. There's no other way to put it. Some of these, I don't want to say nothing too crazy, but yeah, some things do need to happen, right? We keep doing the same thing, begging, asking, pleading, and we're at the same place. Tactics have to be changed eventually.
Well, they have there's all these different sayings, too many what chiefs and not enough Indians, or you have
Mm-hmm.
whatever, you have too many chefs in the kitchen. You have all these sayings which say when you have too many voices at the top, it's hard for anything to actually get through.
Nothing
And
gets done.
and I feel like you have so many people coming from so many different angles, having so many different messages that it's hard to understand. And they might all be very valid and pertinent messages. But the problem is they all start to drown each other out. And I feel the American public, there's only enough energy to focus on like one or two things at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And when it starts getting, mixed up, I feel the message gets muddled. And the more you start throwing into things, the more confusing it gets. And so I feel like our goal should be to be aware of all these things and actually start to actually focus more on getting together in a unity and more of a conference instead of hitting the streets first, or you protest this first, or figure out a strategy. We have kind of a bunch of lone wolves, you know, and everybody's taking their strikes and approaches. And true, it might feel like the right thing, and it might be something that we all generally support. But if we're not all behind you at the same time when you're doing these things, I think about like some of these economic boycotts, which I really support. They had like blackout Fridays, or they had like small business Tuesdays, and some of these things like that, where they're not getting out and connecting to everybody yet. They're just talking to a certain bubble, and then it's put out and it's like, hey, well, we would have supported you on this if you kind of brought us into the fold. And so I feel there's a lot of camps that were spending more time trying to launch their attacks and not realizing how big the system that they're fighting actually is. And I feel like you kind of need to build that internal army first before you try to strike against, you know, that stronger, you know, power. Because it's kind of like that old saying, if you're going to go for the king, you better not miss.
That's a fact. If we could just transition into the Rittenhouse thing.
Oh, yeah, most definitely.
You know, just we have a couple of problems here, right? One, the police, their treatment, etc., their behavior. Then the second part is the people who are so propagandized in thinking that people who resist police are just evil, right? And they deserve what they get. That kid, Kyle, that's not even his community. He didn't live there. You know, he said he had he said he went to help, right? But he brought a little medical kit this big. Who you helping? Also, you think all those BLM protesters are a bunch of what did he say? Oh, okay, I was just reading the comment. No, but he didn't go there to help anybody, and all those protesters he already has a disdain for. He already disliked them, so he know he wasn't going out there to help protesters. So who exactly were you going to help? The police have medical staff. They have people. They have the ambulance. You know, things like that. They have emergent medical services. They have that. So what was he going to do? He went there with an assault rifle to shoot somebody. I guess his mission was accomplished. Now he's going to go to jail. I just really hope he sits in general population for quite a long time, because the intent behind that was not good. From the start, you could see it. So I have no mercy for him, none whatsoever. And all the people who make it, and all the ones who say, "Oh well, he's defending himself. There was other people shooting at him. He shouldn't have been there." So we could talk about all the extra things. We could talk about all the things after the fact. Correct, we can. But let's start at the beginning. He had no business being there. He's 17 years old. What you doing cosplaying with an assault rifle? Like, and they, you know, it gets me a little frustrated because a lot of these guys sit behind their computer and they talk guns, 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 but they don't ever seem to be shooting at anybody who has a gun on the other side most of the time. You know, it's never that. It's just always them dressed up like some wannabe G.I. Joes, running around town screaming, just being ignorant as hell. Like, that's going to be a problem going forward. But I'm just glad they stay where they stay.
Did you see the video of him a couple of days before?
Yeah, with the girl in the parking lot punching the shorty.
Him punching the girl.
I saw that this morning.
What I tell people is, you know, for one, before any of that other stuff, I mean, we can debate all the way to him shooting and all that stuff. But you're 17 years old in another state. You have no right to be there at all. You have no right to be carrying a firearm in that state. The moment he walked into that state with a firearm, it was illegal. So anything he did from that point is of the poisonous tree, as you would say in a court of law. There's no reason for him ever to be engaged with anything. And the moment that the officers were engaging with him, giving him water and laughing it up and walking around with him with that firearm, they were basically accomplice to a crime. Now, it's not going to be looked at it that way from most people, and it's going to be kind of, let's just ignore that part. But they were accomplices to this kid to go into a situation which he created to make worse. And then
Yeah, but
there's
see,
video.
did you see the footage from, I guess, last night when all those Trump guys, they had that big rally with all those trucks and cars, and they were driving through Portland going to where the protesters were? Did you see that?
I heard about it. I haven't seen it yet, but I mean, I just look at it like, okay, right wingers, this is not going to be like I keep on saying, I want peaceful revolution. I want peaceful revolution. This is what I want. But I also am not, naive to the things that are moving around me, and the moving parts. And
Mhm.
I've always been the type, I've grown up in bad neighborhoods, or always around, crime.
Mhm. Exactly.
And so I've always known how, okay, this don't feel right. I need to get up out of here. And I've always had that sense to be able to kind of always watch what's going on around me, because things can turn just like that.
But
And
if
you
you,
don't want to be caught up when the things turn. And
oh, it's
I
just like,
feel like,
back in
mhm,
the day, you see dudes on the corner, they getting into it. You don't know who's gonna pull that pistol out, so you stay away. I mean, you have a few
mhm,
curious people who would run towards it, but for the most part, you're like, nah, I don't want to be caught up in that. So you step back, you watch from a healthy distance, or you just go inside. And going back to the kid, he's 17 years old. He should be chasing girls. Like, what are you doing playing G.I. Joe? But then I saw the videos of his mom and his family. They're all cosplayers, all dressed up to go fight. What? I don't know. Conversely, though, they don't want to wear masks. They don't want to listen to any of the rules, right? So much for law and order. I wonder if they're gonna have the same energy whenever they come around with this vaccine, right? Are they gonna be, law and order, we should follow directions? Probably not. So we're gonna see the hypocrisy on display real soon, as we always do.
well, I just look for these people to eventually, because see, I think this is the time where it's this one. I'm gonna talk about this one little. I guess it's kind of like, maybe it was like a little snippet from a little Bible verse that my mom, she would listen to all the time. And I know some of you out there are not religious, but just bear with me for this little story. And it would say, every day this big dog, he would go walking by this gate, and every day the little dog would just go rap, 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 just barking and yapping the whole way down the fence as that big dog went by. And every single day he would do it and do it and do it. And one day he came down and he got down to the end of the gate, and that gate was wide open. And that little dog turned and said, "Who in the hell left the gate open?" And I think that's what people are about to see in a minute. If they don't, I think those type of people are going to find out that they're doing all this talking and yapping, and when the drama gets really brought to their front step, it's not going to be what they really want.
No, it's not. So I they confuse me. They really do. The right when they just really confuse the hell out of me. But it's neither here nor there at this point. But what's going on in Portland, I really don't understand though what's happening there. I mean, I see it. I'm trying to follow, but I don't quite know what they're out there doing. It doesn't seem
Yeah, I
they
don't know
don't have
either.
it. They don't seem to have any demands. I mean, they're saying like, defund the police. Okay, Black Lives Matter. Okay, but what are your demands? Are you asking that somebody resign? Are you asking, like, what is it? So I think most of them people just need to go in the house, because what happens there will inevitably spread nationwide, right? The more this continues with the election coming up and all these other things happening, there's gonna be a lot more people in the street coming soon. You got to just be careful.
Well, what I fear, um, and I hope that I'm not saying this and something like this does happen, because I do not want anything like this to happen. But I just, part of what I did in the military is, I did a lot of threat analysis. And so our job was to look at terrorism threats and to always look at, kind of worst case scenario. You're always thinking in worst case scenarios.
Mhm.
So when I go to some of these, you know, scenarios that are not as positive and rosy, I say again, it is not because this is what I want. This is partially because this is what I've been trained to look at to prepare for danger so we don't run into danger, not so we will. So what I'm seeing here with a lot of these situations is that Portland situation, it's setting up a potential for a possible terrorist attack from outside the country or even domestic, where you might have some kind of right winger or whatever. I don't know who it might be who decides that, you know what, I just want to go down there. It could be somebody that's their estranged lover is part of the cause or started the cause, and so they just want to hurt them and go. I mean, we never know. I mean, think about the story of Ronald Reagan when he was almost assassinated. The guy was trying to assassinate Reagan to show his affection for Jodie Foster. I mean, you get what I'm saying? Sometimes it doesn't necessarily make sense why people do what they do, but I'm saying it's in the military, we look at things as how high value threat targets, and these are situations which are deemed that would be a high value target for an enemy. And I just think right now we just have tons of them that are starting to pop up all over the place, and that I guess that military analyst side is kind of a little worried about the possibility of that, and then it's spiraling to things worse.
Okay, so good. I want to ask you a question. Do you think some of this and the police inaction in certain cases, right? Because when those Proud Boys or whatever you call them and the protesters link up, it's almost like the police are acting like referees, so to speak, and just like stepping back and saying, all right, fellas, go have at it. How much of that do you think is trying to manipulate our minds into thinking like that there could be a coming civil war? Because this talk about civil war, there's plenty of white people that's not on that type of time that hate me or you. There's plenty of black folks that not on that type of time either, that just want to go hurt white folk. It's not like that anymore. Like, we're way too intertwined to think that it's just going to be cut down a line of black and white.
Well, see, that's where I got to interject just a little bit there. And I feel like that's the difference, you know, that experience living in New York, living in Florida. That is reality, yes. But you have to keep in mind, many people are not dwelling in reality. So with that said, with people not dwelling in reality, they're thinking about, well, we start this race war, all the white people are going to be on our side, all the black people are going to be on our side, we'll go kill off this minority group first, and they have it in their mind chalked out that way. And it's, I mean, anybody who doubts it, there are documentaries, you know, galore about people who think this way and prep this. I mean, I've met people who are part of these types of militias who are preparing for this, and so they legitimately have this in their head that once they start this war, everybody's just going to have to pick a side, and they're going to have this race war. Now, it's mostly white people who have this mentality, and I'm not even that close to saying it's all white people or percent. No. That's the reason why I say it's not in reality. I think what's going to happen is those people are going to try to push for those things to happen, and then they're going to get a big rude awakening when they find out that a lot of those white people that they think are automatically going to jump to their side are going to say, whoa, wait a minute. We're not cool with that. We want to try to, we're not just hating people on their color. We're not part of this race war stuff. We're trying to live we're trying to live a normal, equitable society. We're not trying to, you know, start race wars and all this nonsense. And I think if it did get to a point where it comes to arms in a major way like that, I think they would have a lot of people of their same skin complexion that would be the very people that would be putting them into the ground. And so I don't want to look at things that dark, but that's just, you know, when you have to look at a threat analysis, you have to take it all the way to its fruition, to where you see where it will possibly go. Not that you would want it to go there, but that's what I think honestly would happen if it got to that point, because I just feel like the people who believe in this white ethno state, the percentage of them versus the rest of the white people plus all the other minority groups together is just, the numbers don't add up for them.
Mm-mm. It's too small. They don't have enough juice. They don't have enough people. You know, if you look at their statistics, their death rate is over their birth rate, right? So they have enough problems in their own worlds that they have to contend with. I wonder, because they keep pushing this civil war, civil war, civil war. This only benefits the state at the end of the day, right? Because then they get to put more people in prison. They will accept less dissent, less defiance. So I think we gotta be careful too, because some of this stuff could be, I mean, some of this shit could be fake. Some of it could be provocateurs causing this stuff and making and playing on our emotions. So we have to be very careful right now.
Well, what I worry about is, even, I mean, and that's possible, it could be provocateurs, but it could be natural. But I look at either way, it's reminiscent of a scary time in history. And if you look at what happened to the rise of Hitler in early Nazi Germany, just him rising into power, a lot of the riots and stuff on the streets is what led to them being able to push that authoritarian control.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually the government just stepped down and put martial law on everyone.
Yep.
And I look at that, the protests, because a lot of the media is demonizing most of it as flat out rioting, and that it's not protesting and it's not a small percentage who are actually being negative and actually out there looting, because they're portraying it in this manner. I believe that it makes it easier for these incidents to keep happening and for it to be okay. And I think it will allow the police to start to crack down and the state to crack down also.
And that's what makes me a little bit nervous, because that's why I want some of these people to go inside, because you're going to keep doing this. And I'm noticing even on so-called like liberal media, even they are starting to change their narrative a little bit. It went from, oh, we're totally supportive of the supporters, to now I'm starting to see, like, I think I saw a clip with Don Lemon, who I can't stand, by the way. But anyway, I saw a clip with Don Lemon, and he was saying, oh, the protesters and, they're rioting and looting and all this. I'm like, oh, boy, here we go. And then I saw it from another so-called liberal source, too. And I'm like, okay, so now the narratives are merging. So when that happens, then it's going to be a call for real law and order. All right, guys, go out there, bust heads, get everybody in the house. That's a concern, because then everything you were protesting about, talking about, all your desires, wants, none of that would happen.
I mean, and that's why I say part of the time, I know it's part of my training that I used to do, where it puts me into that kind of almost paranoid type mindset. And I apologize if I'm missing any of the chats, because I am frozen, so I can't see you all. So if you see me moving, I can't see you or the chat. So, I guess, Chris, can you see the chat?
Yeah, I can see it. So, like, let me see. Let's start with end times, when he says martial law would be enacted before race war would go full blown. Yeah, I agree with that. He also said, I do know this: if Trump wins, you will see more burning in.
I said, oh, there we go. Now I can see you.
Oh, okay. End times also said, I do know this: if Trump wins, you will see more burning and destruction of our cities by the left like you've never seen before. I want to question that. What does Trump represent that we haven't seen before? I mean, is it just because his style is like he's a bull in a china shop? Is that what it is? And he's not polished? But in terms of his governing, I don't see he's a major departure from Obama or Bush. He just talks reckless.
I'll tell you this. I honestly believe that even if Trump does win, I mean, or actually, let me flip that. Say Biden wins, the protests are still going to be out in the streets. That's not changing. That's not. I mean, because like
Well, we'll see.
One
That
of
would
the
be
things I
interesting
want
to see. I'm actually kind of curious if Biden wins to see how much of this protest starts, because some of this I do feel is like what's the word, astroturf, so to speak.
well, but here's the thing. The reason why I don't think that the stuff's going to change is because I feel like with a lot of the job loss, after the election starts, they're going to start booting people out right and left. And you're going to have, repos going on, job loss, all that, because I guarantee you, these donors talk to the politicians, they talk to the staff, and they tell them, oh, well, yeah, I got layoffs coming, but, I'll hold these layoffs until February. And so all those kind of things happen, and you have to always be cognizant of that. And so once February hits, that's why I say there's going to be a certain amount of factors that are going to be going on regardless of who's in office. You're still going to have the economic woes. You're still going to be dealing with a partial lockdown situation, and with all the stuff that they've been saying through the CDC and out of Washington, that I guess when it gets cold, that it's the possibility that it's supposed to reemerge and get stronger, and the numbers are supposed to really kick up. And so if the numbers really start to kick up, and I don't know if the numbers kick up just as in those infected or actual death rates,
it's only going to be infected
more. It's going to be more lockdowns. Well, we're going to that another.
Yeah.
We don't know. I mean, we know that it's going to be more lockdowns instantly, and more lockdown is going to go to more of an economic, downward spiral. And regardless of, like, I look at it like this, people will say, well, if it wasn't for COVID, then Trump's economy would be fine. Yes, okay, it possibly could, but COVID is here, so we have to deal with it. And the fact of the matter is, the longer it's locked down, the economies are going to keep shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. And the more you have that, and people don't have a means to, pay their bills, or they start getting, no roof over their head, no
breakdown of the relationships,
no
they're not getting along with their spouses, their children, all that stress. That's a powder keg for, that's just bad.
And that's what I'm saying. All of these things, I think, are still going to be going on, and it's just going to be a matter of if Congress is going to decide to actually act to try to stem the tide a little bit, or if they're going to ignore it. And I don't know what's going to happen at that point.
Well, isn't the second stimulus check that's dead, right? They're not doing that again, right?
That, as far as I've heard, it's dead.
Yeah, so that tells me, I guess we could just use that to, predict the future. Congress doesn't seem at all concerned with making people feel relaxed, and this applies to the Democrats, not just the Republicans, right? It's both sides. They could just come up with a simple stimulus bill. Let's get these checks out to everybody. But you have Pelosi on one side wanting to add this or add that, and you have McConnell on the other side wanting to do this and that, and add this or that, or not include certain pieces into the legislation. To me, that's theater. They're just playing around. They want to give the impression that they're working, but they're really not. And you have to assume that they do want some level of despair, because there's easy fixes to some of these things. Some problems are more complex, others not so much. To get people $1,200, which you already did a couple months ago, why is that hard to do just a few months later? I mean, what conclusion are we to draw from that? I mean, even Trump is like, even the president's behind it. Whether you like him or not, I mean, he's like, yo, get them people some money.
Yeah.
So I don't know what their goal is with that, other than to make people feel a certain way and not positive.
I mean, part of me tries to wonder if it is just a true disconnect, because I know on the say middle class level with some of the more moderate voters, I feel like that's what it is. I think that when you were a certain age, cost of living was a certain amount, and so that gets kind of stuck in your memories. And so as things change and as you start to develop and make more money and build a house and your family unit that you build, you forget what things you still look at it as, oh, well, it only cost this much when I was that age. And you're not understanding all the new issues that even your own children are dealing with a lot of times. And I feel that's what gets the disconnect. And with each different level that you go, that disconnect gets larger and larger. And with time, it just, splits and splits and splits, because they're not seeing the difference in cost of living adjustment. They're seeing a couple of pennies out here and there, or we're seeing the dollars, drop out, and some seeing the hundreds drop out. And that makes a huge difference.
End time. I don't know if you could see the, I'll read a couple of the comments. Who is it? End Times writes, I do not, if Trump wins, you will see more burning and destruction of our cities by the left like you've never seen before. All right. But if Biden wins, you will not see the right go into the streets to burn, kill, loot, and destroy our cities. The left knows this. VC says, I'll be protesting if Biden takes it. The idea that Joe is just going to wave his hand and shut it down is hilarious. And then End Times writes, if you guys don't think the Dems are in bed with China to create the virus if you guys don't think the Dems are in bed with China to create the virus to destroy Trump's economy, ? Yeah, I didn't understand. I guess what he's trying to say is that the Democrats are working with China to destroy the economy, but the stock market is doing just fine where all of these rich people operate. That's great.
Yeah, I'm not really with End Times on that, as far as thinking that it's trying to destroy the economy for Trump. Because here's the thing, the same people for Trump who think the economy is fine and who are going to support people are the same people. The same people who thought the economy was crappy before COVID are the same people. All of us who didn't like the economy before COVID and thought it sucked under Trump still think it sucks. I mean, it's not like that made a difference. So I get it. A lot of Trumpers think that made some kind of a difference, but it doesn't. I mean, no, it really doesn't. The COVID, that's not even factored in the economy for the most part, because everybody blames COVID on the economy. So they don't blame Trump for that. So that whole thought process of way of looking at it is completely backwards.
Yeah, I don't understand that either, because they're both in on it, right? Both members from both parties sold stock for companies that were going to be hurt as a result of the shutdowns, right? They turned around and purchased stock in companies that were going to benefit from the shutdowns. So to think that this is a Democrat-Republican thing is just that's 20th century. We got to step into the 21st.
End Times, you can go. I did a video on this a couple months back. You can go back through the video, and I literally talk about both parties and show faces and names to everybody who, well, not everybody, but most of the people who came out. And I put it on both parties. So if both parties were doing insider trading, how can you blame that on the Democrats trying to do something weird with Trump? You got to understand, both parties are in on this hustle. You are being hustled also if you are buying in that Trump is some kind of scapegoated victim.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I see Kelly's in the chat. How are we doing, Kelly?
There's a bit of I don't know the right term, but it's like a magical thinking that this guy Trump is here to save us all. And I'm like, yo, there's nothing in his track record that would suggest that he gives about anyone other than himself. It's a long track record. And I know people can change and do other things, but he has not shown that his entire career. Never.
Chris, think you're my age. Remember, they all thought the same exact way about George Bush.
Yeah.
They all love George Bush the same way. George Bush, no, George Bush is always right. And George Bush didn't do this. And you guys are just always trying to attack George Bush. And George Bush, man. And then when he finally tanked the economy, then they're like, well, I guess, George wasn't that great. They had to wait seriously through his whole entire term before they would finally admit anything. That's the reason why whenever conservatives start trying to criticize, it's hard to listen to anything they say because they won't even be honest with the things that they do wrong on their own side. I'm criticized. I've been a Democrat most of my life. My family were Democrats. I criticize Democrats. Republicans refuse to look in the mirror. So if you can't look in the own mirror at yourself, I refuse to listen to what you say. Now, George Bush, the reason why I compare it is George Bush, he ran a baseball stadium. What did he do with that? Tanked it. George Bush ran an oil rig, tanked it. He ran Texas, he tanked it. He became president, he tanked it. What did Trump do? Business after business after business, he tanked it. What else did he do? Bankruptcy after bankruptcy after bankruptcy. And most of his money that he got was, hey, daddy, I'm in trouble. Give me some bailout money. And you guys are all sitting there acting like, well, Trump is this self-made, this and that. I am somebody who used to read books nonstop about Trump because I used to actually respect him and think he was actually really intelligent. Trump is nothing but a silver spoon trust fund baby who was constantly screwed up and had to beg daddy for help. So I'm sorry I had to go on a little tangent, but I refuse to hear anybody who wants to sit here and try to pop up Trump like he is anything that is helpful to this country. Trump is a cartoon distraction. And sooner or later, people need to start realizing it. And you know what's going to happen? After he's out of office, a couple of years down the road, Trump is going to be looked at the same way that Bush is looked at, where they looked at him as goofy and stupid. And then he's going to be all reformed. You guys are going to say, oh, well, he's not as bad as President whoever, Tucker Carlson or Lou Dobbs or whoever they come up with.
Look, real quick, Alyssa Vieira, who's in the chat, she said something. She said there is a trend of failing tasks successfully. That is so true. Because their failures seem to result in all the things they want to happen after their failure, right? Not necessarily about Trump, but in terms of like Bush goes, he didn't read the presidential daily briefing, right? And then we got hit with towers on 9/11. You know, oops, I made a mistake. So it just seems to be a lot of incompetence. Oh, and then she mentioned Jared Kushner. I mean, I could go on about him and his family too, but
I gotta answer that one. Said the Bushes are crook too. Yeah, well, you know what? Not only the Bushes are crooks, but the Trumps are crooks. You got to remember, you're talking to a veteran who served at bases outside of the country. Also, I know how much certain bases make a certain amount from trips and flights going in and out. Trump intentionally sends the military to certain bases where his golf courses and businesses are, so that they have to fuel up and stay there where he is making personal money. Trump is also charging the Secret Service and all these people for when they have to stay at all his places. So Trump is a crook also. You can't sit there and try to differentiate and say it's just Bush. Trump was a crook. Bush was a crook. Nixon's a crook. Reagan was a crook. They're all crooks. So you can't sit there and try to act like it's some, oh, no, they were separate. They're all crooks.
Mm-hmm. Sorry. It's the same for the same for Biden.
Obama's a crook too.
Hell
Obama
yeah.
is a crook.
Hell yeah. And you know, Obama, I have a special dislike for him and his people.
Yeah, you can go on and handle that. Yeah, Obama too.
Yeah, I have a special dislike. They're so disingenuous, especially with the NBA. Look, the NBA, a couple of guys started to get it and realize, like, you know, we didn't belong here. You know, we didn't belong in this bubble. We need to be out, right? Obama gets on the phone with Chris Paul, LeBron, and a couple other guys, and all of a sudden they're like, well, yeah, we're going to play again. Man, go sit down. I'm just tired of him. He's about nothing and just talks nicely. Same with Michelle. She single-handedly rehabbed Bush's image in the media by taking a piece of candy from him. Like, yo, if they don't get out of here, man, I swear to God.
All right, so you know what? I'll correct myself. I'll say something. He's worse than a crook. He wasn't a crook. This is what he did. When the black community, who was suffering the most in that economic down struggle, he did nothing. When they were losing their homes like crazy, he didn't. He had the option when he came into office to give the money to the homeowners or to give it to the banks. He chose to give the money to the banks and let them make the determination on what they were going to do with the people. That booted tons of black people out of their homes. That also put tons of debt on them. And then you go to Flint. What did he do with Flint? He ignored that. What did he do down in Denmark, South Carolina? He ignored that. So we're not here. This is, I don't know what you thought you got here, but this is not some Obama Defense Network here.
Hell no.
I call out any and everybody. And the ones who talk about purity tests, if you decide to put yourself to the test of getting in the office, I will give you the complete judgment and purity of fire. I don't sit there and dice it or make it easy for anybody. So this isn't about defending the Democrats. If you look at my Twitter page, it literally says politically homeless. So I'm not defending either party.
No, we're not. No, VC said Dems aren't any better. If you're still playing the red and blue game, you're still just playing yourself. Correct. Agreed. It's one coin, two sides. One coin, two sides. They do the opposite. You know what I'm saying? Like I said yesterday in yesterday's chat, Bush started wars. Obama went ahead and extended them along with the tax cuts. You know, when it comes to like the prison reform.
End Time says they were just checking.
Okay. But even Obama did nothing for like criminal reform. I guess he signed a bunch of what did he do? Grant clemency to a bunch of people at the end of his term, right? Oh, you're so brave. But Trump comes and does the First Step Act. And I'm saying, why couldn't Obama even done that minimal amount of thing? But and since it's a black forum, that's another thing I want to talk about in regards to the Trump supporters. They're always saying something to the effect of, oh, you know, Trump has done more for black people. Yo, let me let you know, most of us are not in prison. Most of us are not about to go to prison. You letting a few people out of jail benefits them, I clap, but that doesn't help the vast majority of us. So when you come telling me, oh, he did this, that's not helpful for the community at large, especially if they come home and they ain't got no work. Mm-hmm. So I just had to get that on.
No, that's perfect. I'll add on to that. Or they get home and the work they have is minimum wage. Mm-hmm. That doesn't help either. I mean, it doesn't help if you're not afforded opportunities. You can sit there and go to college while you're in prison. You can work on all these job skills. You might even become a welder or something. But if you go home and you can't find work, and especially many people who are incarcerated have children. What do you do if you have children that you need to take care of and you can't find work? That's what, neither of these parties address many of these issues. And that's what I'm talking about. They can argue on the top end, oh, we're going to do this and I'm going to do that. But we're not seeing the actual changes. That's where the problem is. I mean, Alyssa right there, she's
on point. I gotta give it to her. She's on point, man.
Well, yeah, Alyssa's that's my homegirl right there.
Okay.
Make sure you tune in and catch us tonight. She's one of the co-hosts on Annihilation Cage with Niall also. So we have a good time on there, and so she's hilarious. So make sure you tune in and catch us later tonight.
No, but she's on point.
I wouldn't mind. She said I wouldn't mind seeing a shoe chucked at Bush, at Obama like Bush. Where you know, I look at it like this: what Obama did was he did good pomp and circumstance, and if you only look at politics on a surface level, then that's fine. But if you're somebody who actually cares about the issues, I mean, do you think that when you go to some of these other countries, you're completely cut off and you don't build contacts or feelings towards the nation and towards those people? I mean, that would be insane. And when I go to some of these countries and I hear the stories of what these people are going through, and then I watch, you know, the Obama administration droning the mess out of these people, those kind of things bother me. When you've been in a country where you see what sanctions actually do on the ground, it's different than hearing about sanctions. When you see sanctions, people hear a number. Real sanctions You see actual hospitals of people dying. You see
Mhm.
people actually starving out on the streets. You see people starting to steal and rob and chaos in those countries. That's what you see, because that's the point of sanctions, to cripple a nation so it creates chaos on the inside to force the government out. That sanctions are harmful, and that's what everybody's like, yeah, fine, sanction here, sanction there, sanction here, sanction there. And they're sanctioning medical equipment most of the time to hospitals. That's what they're doing
Oil,
most of the time.
oil, as in the case with like Venezuela, or the American government just took what, 4 ships from Iran that were headed to Venezuela with oil. I mean, this is just we're at a critical point. If we don't start to break some of these things down going forward, it's going to be too late. That I hate to be doom and gloom, but we have to face reality, right? We can't just pretend that everything is just going to be okay because some good and valuable politician is going to come along, and waiting on that is a waste of time.
Yeah, a couple of comments to throw in there. I didn't know that. Alyssa says that the firefighters can't claim that background.
No, they can't.
That's so messed up.
They can't
And then
at all.
and then she says so in a division amongst us force, and that's true. Kelly, she brought up a good point that we didn't mention: the slave markets in Libya. I mean, anybody that don't know what we're talking about, look up any of these things. You can see this by legitimate credited sources. You can see video, you can see footage. Now, I've even done reports on many of these things. If you are familiar with my channel, or if you're new to watching this, please go back and check some of my old videos. I bring up these things. These are issues that I'm not afraid to talk about. I'm not afraid to call out either party. I think that we should be more upset about the fact of the first black president is the one who brings slavery to a nation.
On behalf of the French.
Yeah.
On behalf of the French, because what's his name? Macron?
Yeah. Emmanuel Macron.
Macron and the French bourgeoisie over there, they have a lot of money tied up in Libya and just Africa as a whole too. So, Obama used NATO to help his French buddies out. I don't know why, but the whole thing is, the whole network needs to just come down. We've allowed it to grow too long, so we got to get this cancer out of here. And speaking to who said it, Alyssa, sowing division amongst the poor people. We have to stop allowing ourselves to be divided among stupid shit. So my suggestion to that is, don't watch CNN, don't watch Fox, don't watch NBC, don't listen to NPR. I mean, you really have to search independent people who are not tied to selling you some BS or nonsense narrative that's just going to hurt you in the long run. That's the only reason. That's the only way the division can exist and sustain itself, because we keep taking in information that's not good.
Yeah, and I'm gonna steal a quote from my brother, which I heard him say the other day. I kind of liked it. And I was like, it kind of makes a lot of sense. Everybody, especially if you're still in the chat, I mean, still watching and enjoying, please make sure to give us at least a like. You don't have to share. I understand that some people don't want to watch a full hour-long, discussion or hour plus, but please at least give us a like in the on the channel. It helps get the message out. It helps get more people involved. It helps get us more eyes on the channel. What my brother said was, watching content which somebody creates and walking away without at least giving a like is like watching a movie and not paying. So, I mean, try to help out some of us small independent people. I mean, we're not like some of these other ones who are literally asking for money for a certain content, or I'm not trying to demand that you share me all over the place. Just give me a like, just a simple like. That's all. That's all.
Know, right? Just throw the hands up. I see you.
Just give me a like. Just say, hey, we see you here. We appreciate, even if you don't agree with everything that we're talking about. Hopefully that you can appreciate that we are sincere in trying to bring forth positive change. And I feel like the best way for us to bring forth positive change is for us to bring forth awareness. If we can bring forth awareness first, then we can allow everybody else to make up their own determinations on which way they want to go on things.
And I would add to that is it has to be local. Thinking that you can turn this thing nationally is too much. It's too much to bite off. So you got to start with your own community, literally. Homeowners associations, other neighborhood community associations, city councils, school boards, things of that. It has to start from there because you're never going to be able to do it from DC on down. Never, never, never. You're going to fail. And you're going to get so frustrated too. You may just join the other side. You'll be so frustrated.
Let's see. I got a little, I missed a couple of comments on my couple little rants. I apologize for going on my little rants. But I think you guys like them. So we'll stop pretending. Perilous end times said perilous times will come. I think we're here. Learn the parable of the fig tree. Those who don't know the parable of the fig tree, I suggest you look it up. I'm familiar with it, and I'm going to go back and actually research it again, just so that it's fresh in my memory. So thank you, End Times. Kelly says, I read the going rate for a slave in Libya is $200. I read the same thing. And I believe for a female, it's actually less. Which, of course, you know, they always got to slight the woman.
Always. Always.
Even,
I don't know why.
Even when they're being disrespectful, they got to double the disrespect to the woman. So,
always. And it's like, yo, that's some coward stuff to me, right? Like,
yeah,
me, I keep my energy the same. If I'm critical of a female, I'm going to be critical of a man the same way. I'm not going to throw on extra spice just because it's a female. That's lame. I don't have time for that. That's not virtue signaling either. That's just me. You know what I mean? I got a mom, I got cousins, sisters. I don't have any sisters, but cousins and, you know, girls and may as well be my sisters, right? So, yeah, no, I don't do that.
End Times also says, when my dad landed in North Africa. Oh, we got to, I'll put it out there as a trivia question for those listening. So do not answer, Chris, if you know it. We'll give that a minute, and we'll give that a minute and see if anybody can figure out. So what End Time asks is, when my dad landed in North Africa, in World War II, guess who he said were the first troops that shot at the U.S. troops? I will leave that out there for I will give it a minute, and then End Times, if I don't answer or somebody else answers first, then please post the answer for us. See, Alyssa says, independent media, the only way we get the truth. Guerrilla radio starts now. I mean, we all know that it's like at most 6 different, you know, corporations or entities which control all of our media. We know that. And so what that means is that's a limited amount of people who decide what we can listen to or what we should listen to. And so those people who are actually deciding to actually get into books, who are actually deciding to listen to lectures, who are deciding to look for knowledge outside of being told or parroting information from other sources, got to start listening to more of these people and have more of a skeptical eye of what you hear from the more conventional sources. Let's see, what else do we have here? Because I'm chit-chatting too much. Where do we go when Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube start throttling independent? Kelly, that's a great question. Where do we go at that point? I honestly think that, you know, we need to.
There are other platforms that do exist. However, the people who frequent those places, you may not really. But I'm just saying, like, you can go to Gab. Right, I know who uses it. I know who's there. But again, at the very least, they're not censoring. BitChute, which is the alternative to YouTube. Again, it's not as smooth, not as good as YouTube. However, There's no censorship. We're right now, if you have any sizable platform and you are going against a major narrative and you're gaining followers, they will disappear you so fast in these, they won't even wait.
Well, that's the reason why I feel like, you know, I feel like some of my military experience and point of views have to be kind of brought in, because the military side is always focusing on strategy. It's always focused on, okay, strategy, what's the best strategy? And that's what fails a lot of people when they deal with politics, because they're only willing to do what their side has done before that works, or ideas that they think will work. They're not willing to even look at strategies of the other side. Now, I'm not saying embrace the ideology of the other side, but you can embrace the tactics. And one thing I'll say about, you know, looking at this whole two-party dynamic, Republicans have known how to kick the Democrats' butt on strategy over and over and over. The Republicans honestly have a worse message. They say, hey, we're going to take care of your bosses and the money will come down to you eventually. That's the message. And they keep kicking the Democrats' butt. It's because of strategy. It's because of how they market a message.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. The Democrats, you know, they're always trying to pander to you and me, or to women, or to gays, or to Hispanics, or they try to pander to every single group while doing nothing for any of them. Mm-hmm. So that's why it's easy to reject the whole Democrats' message. It's not a message of anything. It's just nonsense. The Republicans at least have a financial goal, which is to take all your money and give it to somebody who doesn't need the money. So, I mean, neither of those things I could get with.
Let's see. I got an idea for Kelly. When I was thinking about like strategy, that's the reason why I'm big on trying to start kind of more collaboration, more group, more getting to know each other. The more we get more familiar and the more we build relationships with each other, we can start communicating in other means. And it doesn't have to be, once we have the knowledge, once we have the connections, then it's almost like, you know, the old spy movies. You know, everybody's already on the same page. And so you come up with an encoded way of getting those messages across. And when you're going to move, whether it's going to be protest, whether it's going to be strikes, whether it's going to be sit-ins, whatever you're going to do, whether it's going to be you're all showing up to a politician's, you know, office and going to raise hell until they listen to your demands. Whatever it's going to be, if you get to an underground form of communication, it keeps them from trying to put everything down, because it's just communication flowing around. It's not as up in their attention because it's just, you know, it's no loud message. When we're out on our platforms like we're doing now, as we start to grow, we will get suppressed. And so that's why my goal is to try to push to get everybody on, get everybody together for some kind of collaboration. End Time says
1 minute.
Says, I think you guys are great. Love both of you all, even if you don't agree with everything, but I can tell you guys are great guys. Thank you. Thank you very much. I enjoy the conversation, and we don't always have to be on the same page. So
every single thing.
No, not at all. As long as we're trying to work towards positive means, I'm down to try to work things out with anybody. All right. End Times, nobody has given us the answer, so can you give us the answer?
He said you should know the answer.
Well, I would say it would probably be the French.
That was my guess.
Because I do know that they were there
in Algeria.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Alyssa says it was the U.S. End Times.
Could have been friendly fire.
Times.
Could be a trick question. It could have been friendly fire.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I thought it was the French though.
Maybe it was the English. You go. You choose France. I'll choose England.
Okay.
Oh, it's the French. Okay.
French.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I know that the French had been already starting to position themselves and do some things over there already. Yeah, in times, I think if you don't watch our other channel, and Chris filled in today. He is a co-host on the Political Matrix with me and Emmanuel. And please make sure to tune into that channel. I'm pretty sure you're going to enjoy some of those conversations because we're going to dig deeper into some of that stuff right there. So I'm telling you, you're really going to like some of the things that we're going to talk about because we're going to get deep into history. And we're going to talk, like, for instance, I'm going to give you guys a little tidbit, something that I just learned. The Lusitania, we all know what the Lusitania is, right? Just
There's a
learned
supply
that.
ship.
Well, it was supposed to be just a regular cruise ship and regular supplies. I just found out in 2008 that when they unearthed it, they found it was full of ammunition.
Yeah, they were trying to break the German line and get the supplies to England, but Germany already knew what time it was. They had taken out an ad in the New York Times telling people, hey, don't come over here. Don't cross the Atlantic. Don't bring nothing over here. If you do, we're going to blow it out the water. And that's exactly what they did. But unfortunately, the propaganda worked so well.
One correction. They actually didn't get it in the New York Times. They tried for the New York Times, and they tried a couple of other major papers, but they refused it. And so they ran it in all the European papers, and they pushed it through all the German media. Do not let this ship come over here, because if it does, we're going to light it up. And it was intentionally kept out of the media.
Well, that was the incident that got us into World War I. It's the same thing with World War II, with the Gulf of Tonkin.
Don't get too ahead. We'll talk about World War II another time. Don't get too ahead.
Yeah. All right.
Because on this platform, we don't want to start merging our shows together. We're going to keep it on the issues here, but make sure to follow more of that debate. Which, I mean, it's going to be definitely an interesting one. Make sure that if you are not at least skeptical of the system, please don't come and watch that segment, because it's only for those who have been doing their deep research and have noticed the cracks in the system and things which just don't look right and are willing to face it head on. So if that's you and you're willing to be on board for that, make sure to please come over to the Political Matrix and catch me and Chris and Emmanuel over there.
Marcus, I do have a question for you, though, right? Since this seems to be the place for it. What are your thoughts on Black Lives Matter as an organization? Not so much as a term, right?
Oh boy.
What is your thoughts on that?
My problem with Black Lives Matter, and I started off that way, is the moment it became an LLC. Black Lives Matter, it's almost like you know what? I'm gonna relate this in a way where even conservatives can understand it. Imagine going back to the American Revolution and how they looked at, hey mom, you see Teresa in there, that's my mother, everybody, so be nice.
Mom, hi mom. What's up, mom?
You go back to the early revolutionaries and their mind and their mentality towards the flag early. It was more of a sense of purpose. It was more than just a piece of cloth to them. It was an idea. And that's kind of like how I looked at Black Lives Matter. When I was early part of the protest back in, 2010, 2011, that I believe that was like with the Trayvon Martin and some of that stuff that was going on, and Jordan Davis. But it was more of an outcry to injustice that was going on. And I feel that when it got to the point of an LLC, and it got more corporatized and it got more into a political lane, instead of just being a nonpartisan entity. when it got into becoming Democratic only, and it got switched to, okay, conservatives have to be against it, or conservatives, if they're for Black Lives Matter, then they're against Trump or something. That's where the problem got twisted around, because politicians got involved and started saying, well, I support Black Lives Matter, and to fight Black Lives Matter, you have to fight Trump. And it's like, see, and it started mushing up the message. And I feel that's the biggest problem. I still support it in essence, but when it got politicized is when it became a problem for me.
It's all, you know, I agree too. And then, you know, you follow the money, where it's going, who started it, what behind it. It's just, it doesn't feel at all natural to me. What it feels like is a campaign by certain forces to ensure that Black folks stay within the Democratic Party. It's to make sure they don't start thinking and like, well, maybe I don't have to rock with you guys. Maybe I could do my own thing. So it's always about framing white people as evil and want to harm us. And, you know, we need to stand up against this. And the only way we can do so is to vote Democrat. So the whole thing behind it is just like you said, in theory, in essence, I agree with it. But the way it's being run and who's running it, I don't even see many Black people in the street. Not anymore. Maybe at first, you know, maybe in February, March, or whenever this stuff popped off. But it seemed like they were out there for a week or two, and they said, I'm going home. I don't see any Black folks out there.
Well, let's be honest. You know why you don't see a lot of Black people out there? There's multiple reasons, but I believe one of the biggest reasons is statistically, many Black workers are essential workers. And so if you're an essential worker, it's hard for you to get out to a protest. So I think that's a big part of it right there. I think also you have a certain amount of Black people who have had experiences with the police who know, I don't know if I really want to really put myself out there with police like that. You know, whether
and into what end? Yeah. What are they even asking for? I don't even see. I mean, defund the police. That's so broad and so generalized. Again, the situation here in South Florida is different than the situation in Michigan, which is different than the situation in Texas and Chicago, New Jersey, and what have you. So just saying defund the police, what does that mean? I don't like the police, right? I don't rock with them. But what does that all right, fine, we're gonna defund the police. What does that mean? I don't know. And again, what does that do? It antagonizes the other side.
Well, and I feel like it's kind of like it and you know, VC said, I do see a lot of echoes from the Occupy days. That was some demoralizing stuff when I watch that fall apart and lose all its meaning in real time. I mean, yeah, I was a part of the real time. I mean, I was a part of it, you know, watching the movement kind of being crushed and stomped out by the president I just voted in, and, you know, went around canvassing for and phone calls like crazy and trying to get people to support, is the same one who's kind of turned a blind eye to us being, you know, beat up and attacked by police in the streets. And I realized that most of the people who were so happy to get Obama in there didn't focus on that. I looked at it and I was trying to push Obama as a two-part message. Yeah, we're getting our first Black president, but yeah, we're going to possibly change the system, and we're going to do this, and we're going to get these policies. And many were comfortable with just getting the first Black president. And that's where
that was it. They was done. I did my job. I went out, voted. I got him in there. I love his wife. I love his kids. I love the dog. I love the grandma. I love it all. And that was it. And he's going to take care of it. You know, from like, it probably wasn't even until like 2013 and 14 that you could actually start being slightly critical of him and the administration, because from 07, 08, 09, yo, you couldn't say a word. A word. Man, you go in a barbershop, you go to a family member house, Thanksgiving, and it's like, yo, Chris, who are you? What? But I don't look at things just from a left or left, right, Democrat, Republican lens. That's limiting yourself. Like, we got to think bigger, you know?
Yep, I noticed my mom say it's about accountability, and that's that message I just keep preaching over and over and over. Accountability. And I just keep wanting to ask the questions of, which ways are the best ways to be accountable? I feel like we're not focusing enough on the supervisors. We're not focusing enough on DAs. We're not focusing enough on police chiefs. We're not focusing enough on mayors. And that's where the pressure has to be put in, because these are the people, when the mayor starts speaking and saying, okay, well, we're going to hold these people accountable, then the ball gets moving. But if the mayor wants to sit and be quiet on an injustice, or whenever we're not allowed to be able to get the dash footage or body cam footage until 6 months later, those things are the problem. That
Are you talking about your boy,
accountability.
You talking about your boy, the former mayor of Chicago, Mr. Emanuel?
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I think we have to find ways to limit the interactions, because that is where the problems mainly start. So what do we do? And like I said, I think we have to go back to, especially for majority Black neighborhoods, we have to do something about the drugs. That is why they're there. So it's going to take the community to tell some of these dudes, yo, you got to do something else. You can't just be standing out here on this corner, or you can't do this anymore, because it's making it hot for everybody else. And you don't mind going to jail or doing these other things, but there's a lot of us who don't want to have to deal with that. But you're making it hot, and you can't call the police on them, because then it takes it to a place where, damn, I ain't even wanted to go there. So we have to do something internally as well, while also holding the police accountable in some kind of way. And again, I always say, start with their money. That's it. Find a way to start taking their money, and a lot of it.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I completely agree. And something that I want to add on to that, I mean, you're entirely correct, and I want our audience to know that we don't want to just put the blame at the foot of all the politicians, or just racist people or bigots or people in power. Like Chris said, we do got to take a certain amount of that responsibility on ourselves and try to work on our own community. Myself, I guess, getting to an age where I'm old enough to be a mentor to some of these younger people. More of us in my peer group, Chris, Emmanuel, a lot of us need to be more of a leader. And that's why I'm trying to speak out and do some of these things, to get some of us more involved with taking some of these young men and women under our wings, so that they can kind of look at things a different way and say, you know what, I don't want to be involved with that anymore. I want to try to do better with myself. I want to try to have some goals, some ambition. I have a problem with this situation. How am I going to try to solve it? And maybe we can give them some ways through maybe some of our faults, or maybe through some of our successes. So, I mean, I'm definitely.
And the other part too is, you know what? If you're a cop, you have to live in the community. You can't be 6 towns away. You can't be an hour and a half north, south, east, west. Nah, you have to live here. Like, you have to live within a few blocks of the station you represent, because then now you do something wrong, you got to face these people. It's not like, oh, I did something wrong, I don't got to go back over there again, I'm gonna get reassigned to a different part of town. Nah, player, you need to be here. And that goes for all of them. Not to say that's gonna make everything right or root out all corruption, but if you know you gotta go home and there's gonna be people waiting for you, you may behave a little bit differently on the job.
Well, I see. I want to go back to, because I guess I get going a little bit, and I love it that we're getting more comments. The fact that I even have to go back, so that is a blessing and a great thing. So I appreciate it. In time said back here, I heard a pastor by the name of James Manning say the Black community was really starting to flourish in the 1950s, which historically there is truth to that. They were actually starting to flourish in the 20s also. That was where a lot of the Black wealth actually really started to get cooking. Actually, well, there's a period in like the late 1800s. Well, we don't want to go into that and gets complicated, but the 1920s,
in the 20s, that was the Great Migration.
Where the Black community was starting to do well. And when they talked about the Roaring 20s, that wasn't just, that was all of America was really starting to do prosperous for a time period, up until, you know, the Great Depression, of course. But and then later on in the 50s, you had that too. But the biggest problem which you always had is you always had the KKK, and you always had those KKK members who were in government, who were exacting their revenge or hatred, you know, bigotry through the court system, through the banks, through the police force. And that's something that has always kind of been a kneecap to the Black community, and then even up to the politicians with the redlining and shipping away jobs. I mean, you can keep going on and on and on, how they constantly kept kneecapping the Black community as they start trying to, you know, build out of the situation that they were left in after slavery.
Yeah, and there's not a recognition of that from a lot of people. You know, it's either we just don't do something, we don't get it, we're not educated, we don't raise our kids. It's everything but what it really is. You know, we're not the only group of men that aren't around for their kids, right? Every group goes to the same thing. Marriage is, what is it, 50% of marriages end in divorce in the United States? That didn't say just Black marriages. That's all. So there's a lot of people in broken homes or single parent situations. It's not just us. I hate that focus on us.
Well, one thing I wanted to add in there also, why do most divorces end? I mean, why do most marriages end? Money.
Money.
Now, if you have one community which perpetually is struggling to obtain money, of course they're going to have worse situation in a lot of their marital situations, because they're having to deal with money problems. And that's something which, when you look at these situations, you have to look at it from all of these different ways of attack, and it's coming from many different sources. Now, I'm not saying that you can't be educated and enlightened or catch the right connections to be able to get out of some of these pitfalls, but to ignore them, I mean, is doing an injustice to the people who are being victimized. My mom asked the question, so how much longer we're going to go? We went a little longer than planned, so we'll go probably maybe another 10 more minutes or so. Just finish up some of these comments and then end up. I'm sorry, I know I go a little bit long, and my mom is not a fan of when I go too long, so my apologies, Mom.
That's funny. I'm gonna send this to my mom. I want to see her reaction. I'm gonna tell her to tune in next time. That's gonna be funny.
But she did say she's enjoying the discussion and great discussion. So she's like, you know, keep going, fellas.
Hey, end times. Yes, we are fully aware that the KKK was started by people who claim to be Democrats, right? Fine, we accept that. However, it was Americans of all political stripes, white Americans of all political stripes, whether they was KKK or not, who participated in watching lynchings, who denied people jobs, who denied people bank loans. So this idea that it's just the KKK and the Democrats are the only ones that hurt people like us, that's telling like a portion of the story. That's not everybody was wearing hoods, you know, like. I see your mom said something. What did she say? Oh, okay. That's funny. So yeah, end times. Yes, we do know who started it. We're fully aware, and we're fully aware of the of how voters then stopped voting Democrat and they started voting Republican. The same Dixiecrat states that were full of KKK members. If you look at the map now, they're all red. They're all red now. So what difference does it make that they had a D after their name at that time?
Well, I mean, you can look at this. You go back to Reagan. Where did Reagan launch his campaign? Philadelphia, Mississippi. What happened in Philadelphia, Mississippi?
They was bombing stuff over there.
Well, you had those three civil rights, those two young Jewish kids and African American kid who were murdered down there after they were taken out of the prison. Also, Nixon, he's the one who actually coined it and started it down there. That's a Republican also. You also go to, where did Trump just have his last couple of campaign stops, and why are they significant? He had one in Tulsa right on the anniversary of Black Wall Street, which was brought up in the comments. Um,
Mm-hmm.
my grandparents grew up literally a earshot right away from that area, right after it happened. So for him to go there, then he went to Jacksonville on the anniversary of Axe Handle Sunday, where they literally went around with axe handles beating up black protesters who were sitting in at a diner.
Oh, I
You
didn't know
can't
that.
sit there and talk about the Democrats started the KKK when you have Republicans who are continuously, giving honor or giving praise, wanting to keep the statues up, all this stuff. You can't sit there and try to, well, 50 years ago, the Democrats started the KKK. So what? The Republicans right now are honoring the KKK. The Republicans right now want to keep the statues up, which honor those same people. Here's another thing. People say, well, we need our statues for our history. Well, I'm pretty sure everybody in America knows who Adolf Hitler is. Is there a statue of him anywhere around? No, there's not a statue anywhere around. You do not need a statue to know people. And also, why do we need to know these specific people? If that's the case, then why don't we have 100,000 statues of everybody throughout history? Why are we focusing on these people? Why are they elevated? They don't need to be elevated. None of these people need to be elevated. Now, I guess I'm going to go a little bit into my religious beliefs, but none of these people, we shouldn't be idol worshiping at all. None of these people are no kind of gods that should be above anybody. They were a man or a woman who lived in a time period. That is it. To immortalize any of them on a wall like they were somebody special, majority of us could have been in those situations and probably did much better things. To sit there and raise these people up like there's somebody that we need to bow at their feet, like they had some kind of divine wisdom that we can't obtain or that we could have done better, is foolish. And anytime I hear anybody before fathers, the founding, get out of here. Don't waste my time with that.
No. Look, Kelly said Biden should not be rewarded. Right, I work with majority of white folks, and when I tell them like I don't mess with neither party, they're like, "Doesn't Trump's racism bother you?" I have to roll my eyes every time. Like, turn on CNN and MSNBC, please, because you're talking to me like you just finished watching Maddow or Joy Reid or somebody like that, and you sound you're incomplete with your facts. Like, don't tell me about Trump when you're telling me about Biden. He didn't want to live in a racial jungle. He said we're not diverse, right? We're not black if we don't vote for him. Nah, you ain't gonna keep insulting me and then think that I'm gonna waste my time and show up to vote for you and your party. That's not happening. Sorry.
Well, I remember the one comment, I guess, if I had to pick one Biden comment that kind of stung the most to me was the one when he was saying about the crime bill, when he was like, they're beyond the pale. I don't care if they didn't have, a father around. I don't care if they weren't socialized. I don't care. He's basically saying, I don't care whatever struggles happen to you in your community. My way of fixing you is just throwing you away. And I don't even believe that I can fix you. I don't believe you're repairable. I don't believe that you can be redeemed. I don't believe that you can be I don't believe you can be reformed. I think you are a throwaway. And I could be maybe taken a little harshly, but when you have police who terrify you because of the way they treat you, and you know that Joe Biden is the one who did that, and it's went on most of your life, and you didn't know exactly why this was going on, but because this was Joe Biden and Bill Clinton that did this, it's something that personally bothers me. And so every time I think of being slammed up against a cop car, or I think about all my money and everything being thrown out and stuff all over the ground, and cops holding me up for an hour for no reason. When I realized all of that stuff, I've literally had a cop steal my paycheck. It literally has my paycheck stub on it. So, well, you must have got this selling drugs. All of these things were pushed and allowed because of Joe Biden and Bill Clinton. And it just, I'm sorry, maybe I'm petty, but the fact that I still have to worry about it to this day, and he's saying I'm not even going to fix it, I'm not going to apologize, and we're all just like, okay.
Yeah,
My
that's
thing
it. Like,
is, whether it's Biden, whether it's Trump, I look at
Yay! No,
we're getting hit with either the left hand or the right hand. But we're getting hit either way.
Marcus, let me answer your mom real quick. She said, so Chris, no Biden, no 45 vote, no Mrs. Cage Massey. I cannot do it. It runs against it's like drowning my kid. I couldn't do it. I just can't. I'm not at all concerned about who wins or loses this election. It's going to be the same nonsense over and over. We have to start building something. We have to build the alternative. We can't just keep saying, well, we'll do it in 4 years, or we'll push him. We couldn't push Obama, okay? So there's no pushing Biden or any of them for that.
Yeah, I mean, my thing is, once they get in the office, there's literally nothing you can do.
No, we know,
there's literally nothing you can do once they get in the office. It's going to be on them until the next votes come back around. And my thing is, you have to strike at the levels below that if you want to actually get something done. The people who really make things move in Washington, as far as elected officials, are the Speaker of the House, or the Senate Majority Leader. You got to go after those people. You got to figure out who is the head of the Senate Finance Committee. You got to go after these individual people and start learning who these people are. And these are the people who pass the legislation and the bills. These are the people who send us to war. These are the people who change the taxes. These are the people who are the real movers and shakers. Most politicians, most presidents are just sitting there, and then whichever has the majority, those people in the House or Senate pass the bill, and they're just signing on the dotted line.
And then we have to even chase the money up that line too, right? Who's paying them? I know they get a paycheck, as a member of government, but also too, who's really writing your laws? Like, because we know even that crime bill was pushed by Alec. Joe Biden may have some input, but that was largely Alec who pushed that bill. They got Joe Biden to put his name on it. So your mom said 4 more years is better. 4 more years of 45 is better than Biden. Actually, I think it is. Only because people don't learn until things get worse. When Biden, just like Obama, there was an opportunity between Bush and Obama. Obama got elected. Everybody just said, oh, he got this. And he just sit back and chill. Yep. So is it going to offend your senses somewhat to have Trump around? Yes, it is. But with Biden, I'm just fearful that a lot of us too, just going to go back to sleep. This ain't time for sleep.
Yep. That's what I fear also. The biggest problem with that, it's not that it's better. Sometimes it's better to have a little bit of chastisement or atonement, and maybe that's a little bit of punishment for all of us for not being more engaged in what was going on. Because I look at it like this: 4 more years, and really it's 3.5. Because well, not even that, because he's gonna be a lame duck. Every president becomes lame duck for that last year. So you got roughly really 3 years, because you got the pomp and circumstance and all that. And this is probably going to be a close election. So he might not even get right back into office. Either one might be fighting in court. So the effectivity of what he's able to do is limited. Now, when Biden goes in the office and everybody goes to sleep, and he's president for about 6 months to a year, and then Kamala comes in the office, everybody is going to completely go to sleep. And then, when Wall Street is sitting up there making these different bills or cutting Social Security and doing all these things, nobody's going to be paying attention, because they see a woman who looks just like them up there. And that's the same thing with Obama. They ignore what Obama was doing because he looked like us.
And with Kamala, especially in this era, the main issue is going to be that, now, if I'm critical of her, I'm just a misogynist and I hate women, right? If you're a white woman, you're critical of her, you're a racist. If you're a white guy and you have a legit criticism of her that's not based on her color or her being a woman, you're just a sexist, racist, misogynist. So having Kamala there is not going to be good for anybody, because it's just going to be, they're going to be able to ram things down, and you're not going to be able to say anything. That's dangerous. That is very dangerous. I mean, even look at the first thing they said after they announced, oh, we need a national mask mandate. What? Why? So you can already see they're going to come in with these heavy-handed policies. And I'm just, I won't say too much else after that. But
yeah, I guess we went 2 hours now, so I guess we will kind of get out of here. That's what I'm saying. My thing with Kamala is most of these younger senators literally know nothing about foreign policy, and foreign policy is the most dangerous part, and that's where presidents spend majority of their time. It's not about this domestic stuff. They are going to be making those decisions. And when you go in there with a novice, you're just going to have all these voices telling them, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. Same thing with Obama. The reason why he had no problem launching a lot of these military campaigns and didn't understand what the military industrial complex was doing. I've been boots on the ground in some of these places, so I got to see what happens when you have somebody who doesn't know what's actually going on. And Kamala's not going to have a clue what's going on.
And the part that people don't connect, what happens with foreign policy inevitably comes back domestically. If you don't believe me, look at drones. You have police using drones to write tickets, right, in certain highways. I went to California, and I saw on the highway, what does it say? Oh, this road is patrolled by aircraft. Like, that's kind of crazy. You look at the buyback programs from the military with the police. That's why the police down in like Boca Raton, Florida here, they look like they're in a Call of Duty video game. And I'm like, this Boca. They don't pop off like that here. But so you have to be very careful in just paying attention to only domestic policy. Foreign policy is extremely crucial, because what we do in Afghanistan, Iraq, eventually we do in Brooklyn, we do in Chicago, and we do everywhere else. So you have to keep in mind it's always one and the same. It's really not as separate as some would make it seem.
And my thing is, I know you say Susan Rice, but Mom, she's just as bad. I'm sorry, because she's tied into actually with the defense contractors. So yes, she actually makes money off of keeping us perpetually in war. And so you put that person in there. And here's my thing. If it was just going to be 4 years versus 4 years, that's one thing. But I'm telling you, when Biden wins and Kamala becomes VP and then becomes president, this is not going to be 4 years. She's going to win 8. I'm guaranteeing you that right now. And 4 years or 3 years of dealing with crappy Trump, or dealing with 8 years of what's going to be happening, I'm telling you, it is going to be far worse. At least with Trump, you get 3 years to reset again.
Mm-hmm. It's true. And even to what your mom said, she says like the Republicans controlled the House. But 09 and 10, the Democrats had all 3 branches. I mean, they had the House, Senate, and the White House. They did absolutely nothing. They gave us Romney. They gave us a heritage plan, they gave us a heritage-inspired health insurance program. Not healthcare. It's a health insurance program that gave millions of customers to the insurance companies. Did they even get a rate lock? Did they get any guarantees that they wouldn't raise rates? No. Our rates been going up. My HR department has to spend time every year shopping for programs for health insurance. So it really wasn't helpful. So
I know what you're trying to say. See, like what I want to explain is the reason why Biden was called the senator from Indiana is because he made it so the credit card companies could take advantage of their people. He also did that with the banking industry. He also did that with redlining. He also did that with all of these things. And my issue is Kamala Harris, who just wants the position, is going to do what she's told. And you already look at who the people are going in there. The same people who were part of the Clinton administration, the Bill Clinton administration, the same people that were part of Hillary's while she was Secretary of State and her Senate campaign. Those same people part of the defense, which led to the Syria policy, all this stuff are already Kamala's advisors. And then
Yep.
for Biden, the same financial people that we're going to talk about, the Jamie Dimon and all of these people, the Larry Summers, all of these same people are all going to be right back. So though you're going to have Kamala's face there and Joe Biden right now, you are getting the Clintons all over again. That's
And
what
you know
you're getting.
what's even worse, it seems as if the Democrats are now super tight with the whole Bush wing of the Republican Party. Because if you put on MSNBC, you see Dave Crystal and Frum and
but
Bush's
you got to
press
go back to
secretary.
why. But you got to go back to why. Do you remember what Hillary originally burst on the scene, what she was known for in Time magazine?
What, for being a Goldwater girl?
Exactly. And for those who don't remember, Goldwater, one of his biggest campaign promises is that he was fighting against the Civil Rights Act. That's what he was fighting against. That is what Hillary comes from. Hillary was a Republican, hardcore Republican. And what you notice is Bill Clinton governed as a Democrat when he was a governor. When he became a president, he started going more and more to the right, more and more to the right. And the Democratic Party has moved along with them. And that's what I'm saying is what they're doing is they're saying, you know, we're not going to just be like Trump and just outright give you straight out poison and you feel horrible. We're just going to slip you a little poison, a little bit of poison, and you just kind of fall to sleep till eventually we lull you all the way into complete control and submission.
That's what's going to happen. That's why on some level I really don't want Biden to win, and I can't stand.
It hurts because it's like, why can't just somebody come out of nowhere and just win instead of both of them? I mean, it feels like, man, either I'm going to walk into this room and have to face 4 guys who are going to beat me down, or else I'm going to be tied in this room and somebody is just going to beat me with phone books for an hour. And it's like, either way, you're getting jacked up, but you can't. But the illusion they want you to believe is, oh no, we can hope that Biden's going to do this. You got to pay attention to the people they're putting in office, because these are the people who run the White House. These are the people day to day who's putting laws in, and the lawyers who are dotting the I's and crossing the T's. It is not anything they're saying on the stump speech.
And you could tell Trump was so ill prepared to win that he wasn't even smart enough or aware enough to even fill the White House with people or the agencies with people who even agreed with him, because there's more leaks coming out this place than I've never witnessed this before. And I tend to follow. I've never seen the amount of leaks that come out of the White House. Every day. It's like, yo, he used the bathroom, but he wiped with his left hand today instead of his right hand. Like, how you know that? So he wasn't even smart. But the Democrats, when it comes to that, especially with the Biden Clinton, they're way more tight with this. So when they come in, they're going to be ready to go off top. There's not going to be this struggle. This position's not filled. This is not filled. They're going to be ready to go. All their people are going to be in place, locked in, and they're going to be 5th gear all the way gone.
All right, I'll finish these last couple of comments, and then I won't respond too much. And I'll get out of here so we don't get too long. I've always been told that you should try to have your audience wanting more than give them too much. And sometimes I give too much. I understand that. I'm generous. And my mom, hilarious comment there. She said Kanye.
Yeah, I see Kanye.
That's why I had to bust out laughing when I saw that one. But she put, okay, I'll stay in my lane. You guys are more knowledgeable than I. And my mom comes from a good place. It's just that she knows that my mom tends to want to give more the benefit of the doubt, and that's that Christian in her, and that's good. And we should all want to look at the brighter side of people. We should all want to look for the better side. But I know that a lot of these people, for the love of money, like that song goes, will kill their own mother. These people will do anything. And just because they seem nice and come across nice, we have to get past what they say, because like the saying goes, you know the tree by its fruits. What fruits are they bearing? You got to keep paying attention to these fruits, and they're bearing fruits. It's just a matter of, do we want to eat these fruits?
It's just not. It's just nothing good. Tear up your insides.
Let's see. A couple of comments. Sounds like we've all been deceived. End times, please come over to the Political Matrix and catch some of my videos over there. Please do. Let's see. Well, we do still have the hope that everything will set straight when, ooh, Jesus, that peace will come. Yahshua HaMashiach. Oh my Lord. There we go. The gift of gab, you get it from your grandmama. Oh yeah, my grandma talks all day long, hours. I mean, she used to like sit there and like talk for like 6 hours a day. Some toxic fruit. Oh yeah, tear it up. Romans, ooh, 1832 sums up this generation pretty good. Yes, it does. Yeah, end times, you gotta come over to political. You gotta come over to Political Matrix, and here it's there. This has been Marcus Cage, other known as Young Morpheus. My good friend and brother here, Chris Lawson, for Young Black Leaders Forum with What I've Been Thinking. I enjoy everybody who's been here. For any comments that I missed on any other platforms, I will try to get back and answer those. If there's questions for Chris, I will relay the questions. Thank you for joining us. Everybody was in here. I really enjoyed the discussion. Even if you don't entirely agree with us, I appreciate that that you hear us out and hear out our perspectives. And maybe there's some things that we can be wrong on, and you all can educate us also. This is not a platform for us to believe that we have all the answers and that we want to tell everybody that they're wrong and they need to listen to us. But on certain things, we all do our different research, and we want to bring that information together so we can have a more enlightened and more informed community. This has been Marcus Cage. Make sure to follow me on my Facebook, Marcus Cage, or catch me on any of my Twitter accounts. Just look for
Thank you, Alyssa.
Young Morpheus, or look for at Real Marcus Cage, or Marcus James Cage, any of the other ones, and I will comment back to you. Thank you, and everybody, please have a very safe week. Make sure you're careful, and make sure you're following your guidelines. Follow your guidelines. Yeah, if you go into the store and they tell you to wear a mask, wear your mask. And by the way, my mom makes masks. And so if you guys are interested, my mom does make custom masks. So let me know. She's made me some pretty cool ones for some sports teams and stuff. So, you know, let me know. She can do some amazing stuff.
And last thing, Marcus, vitamin C, vitamin D, exercise, black seed oil, take care of yourself. You know, go get some sun. Don't just sit in the house. I know it's kind of depressing and frustrating, but still do these things to take care of yourself. That's it.
Oh yeah, I forgot one more thing that I wanted to plug. Not about me. I've been meaning to talk about it for a while, but those of you don't know, I have a brother who is doing kind of some political comedy, and I want to. Hopefully, I can get my brother on here to talk about some things with you all, and hopefully share his channel. And so I want you all to go and follow, go over to my Twitter. I will retweet out some of his stuff today. So make sure to catch some of his stuff. Follow him on Twitter also. He does little short videos, and they're hilarious. They keep me laughing. So hopefully everybody has a good week. Please take Chris's advice on working on your immune system. This is you know, what I've been thinking. You guys have a good one.
Thank you, guys. Have a good one. Marcus, I'll talk to you.